Hey everyone, I'm Armory Gaming. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to Monster Analysis. Up for analysis today is Scrap Warrior. The post-apocalyptic wastelands are ruled by Roxanne and Extra Cox. Lately the greed is out of control and they are attacking everyone in their territory. Scrap Warrior has had enough. Outfitted with armor made of junk, he's ready to fight the Cox brothers and anyone who tries to take advantage of him. And so here we have Scrap Warrior, the newest and latest metal legendary monster. There he is as a child, teen as an adult. I think it's really funny that even as a teen he already looks old. Heck, even as a baby he already looks old. But regardless, yeah, half man, half scrap, the newest metal legendary monster available from the Apocalypse in the Maw Team Race event. And so as of the time recording this video, there's a total of 32 metal legendary monsters. And furthermore, Scrap Warrior is also in the Good Legions book, which currently houses 62 legendary monsters. That's quite a bit of competition there. There are even 6 Nemesis monsters in that category. And then lastly, he's also in the Mechanical book, which is currently home to 33 legendary monsters, including some powerful monsters like Timerion, Hackster, and Captain Copperbeard. And so anyhow, let's take a look at his stats. His power is 3465. In the Metal Legendary category, this places him in 16th place along with monsters like Sir Automatronicus and Jakugan. And I know 16th place may not seem that well, there's only 32 Metal Legendary monsters, so he's right in the middle. However, I will say that the stat itself, 3465, this is the 7th highest for Metal Legendary monsters. It just so happens that the Metal category is full with attackers. There's a lot of monsters that have the base power of 3542, quite a few that have 3509 or 3575, 3476. So yeah, 3465, it's a pretty good power, so don't rule him out as an attacker. As for his life, it's 30,461. This places him in 11th place along with monsters like Arcade and Dad Unit, so a little slightly better than average. And then lastly, as for his speed, it's 3432, which puts him in 12th place along with monsters like Flamarion and Uther the Valiant. So overall his stats are really well rounded. There's nothing he really excels in the most, but he has just really great stats all around. And furthermore, he has that trait I love oh so much, Hardened. All status effects have a 20% less accuracy against it. And once again, this is becoming even more and more important because Social Point is introducing even more effects that are so obscure. For example, Total Blind reduces a monster's accuracy by 100%. So it doesn't matter if you're immune to stun, freeze, possession, whatever, you can still get hit with Total Blind. Whereas if you have Hardened, at least you have a 20% chance not to get hit by that. And of course all those other obscure effects, Hacked, Possession, Rebooted, Mega Stun, Stop Time, the list goes on and on. And as far as relics, you can equip a Trap Relic on him or a Mask Relic on him. And once again, as for the relics, I'm still not too much familiar with them. I've decided I'm going to wait a while until Social Point finally says, this is it, this is what we're going to do with the relics. Because there's still a lot of changes, a lot of glitches going on with them. And so with that said, let's talk about his ultimate skill, What a Lovely Day. Deals very heavy metal damage to all enemies, applies bleeding and total blind to all enemies. So that's what I was talking about. Total blind is the new status effect, which reduces a monster's accuracy by 100%. That is insane. Like, it's almost like giving your team evasion. Or whatever monster you apply total blind to, it's almost as if your team has evasion against that monster. Because with total blind, damage attacks aren't going to land and effects aren't going to land. So you're completely protected from any negative status effect as well as any damage. And so that's why I say it's almost like evasion. Personally, I love total blind more than something like stun or freeze. Because the thing about total blind is, the enemy monster, they're still going to attack you, right? They're wasting an attack, which means you're wasting stamina. So not only do they lose stamina attacking you, they also used up an attack. And if that attack is a powerful attack, say it was an AoE, say it was like a 70 damage, 65 damage, those attacks tend to have a high cooldown. So you've essentially made one of the enemy's attack useless for X amount of turns, and they lost some stamina trying to attack you. It's great, I love it. And with that said, it's not completely like evasion, because evasion you're completely protected, right? Unless the enemy removes positive effects from your team. Whereas Total Blind, they would have to remove negative effects from their own team. But also, if you take a look at ultimates, they have 120% accuracy. So Total Blind won't completely reduce the likelihood of an ultimate not hitting you. If I understand Monster Legends correctly, the enemy monster that has Total Blind, they're still going to have a 20% accuracy to land their ultimate against you. So specifically in those regards, it's not like evasion. Because that 20% chance, you still might get hit. Those are very, very low odds. So chances are if the enemy is Total Blinded, they're not going to be hitting you with an ultimate. And anyhow, it also deals 60 metal based damage to everyone. And if they happen to survive, you're going to apply bleeding, which reduces the enemy's life by 15% for the next 3 turns, and their damage output by 20% for the next 3 turns. And so yeah, this is a pretty awesome ultimate attack. And the thing about Scrap Warrior is you can pretty much run him however you want. As an attacker, as a secondary deny monster, You can arguably make him a denier, however he doesn't have the base speed to do it. But if you're starting off and you happen to get this monster in the team race and he's your only level 115, hey, you might as well give him 3 speed runes and just use him as your main denier because you have no one better to run. So he's one of those monsters that there's just so many different ways to build him, so many different skills that actually are usable for him, and I'm really going to try my best to discuss all of those different options. So with that said, let's move into skills group 1. I want to talk about Moonshine Shot. Applies Mechanical Hater to one ally. So this is another skill that's new to this monster. Mechanical Hater, what is that? Basically what it does is that it makes your monsters stronger against mechanical monsters. And the cool thing about Moonshine Shot is that you can give it to anyone. And currently, I don't know if it's intended to be like this, but it appears that Mechanical Hater actually gives your monster triple damage against a mechanical monster. That's insane, triple damage. And so if you're running Scrap Warrior as a supportive monster, maybe a speed and 2 team speed, and then your Dino monster goes first and denies the enemy, and then Scrap Warrior goes and does Mechanical Hater on your attacker, and then you happen to be facing mechanical monsters, they're as good as dead. So that's one reason why you may want to consider running Moonshine Shot, just because this can be applied to any monster, not just yourself. Later on you're going to see he has a self skill where he gives Mechanical Hater to himself. So I just wanted to throw it out there. I imagine most people won't be using Scrap Warrior like that, but it is a possibility. And speaking of that other skill, in skills group 2 we have Moonshine Bottle. First of all, this removes all negative side effects from itself, and then it applies Mechanical Hater and gives 1 extra turn to itself, requires cooldown. So 28 stamina cost, 2 turn cooldown, you give yourself Mechanical Hater, and you gain an extra turn. Just wow, I love this skill. And again, this really makes me wish that you could still choose your own skills when you were possessed. But regardless, let's say you do get possessed, hey, there's that slight possibility that you just do this skill, give yourself an extra turn, make yourself stronger against mechanical monsters, and then you're good to go. And so because of that, this skill is definitely worth running, regardless if you run him as a secondary deny monster or as an attacker monster. Especially if you run this monster as an attacker, you want Moonshine Bottle. Because he is a mechanical monster, keep that in mind, you're going to be able to use him in Mechanical Wars, in which case he's just going to obliterate the competition. And actually I'll have to come back to this skill once I discuss some of the other skills. So let's move on to Knife Throwing. Deals very heavy metal damage to one enemy, applies bleeding to an enemy, requires cooldown, 55 damage, metal based, 19 stamina, 2 turn cooldown. It's just a regular attack that applies bleeding. Personally, I don't think it's that great. Yeah, the stamina cost is low, yeah, it's 55 damage and applies bleeding, but I'm not really that much of a fan of this skill. Now, if you want to go a pure attacker route and you want only offensive attacks, then you could definitely run it, but I personally won't be recommending it. And then moving on, we have Smoke Screen. Deals very heavy special damage to one enemy, applies total blind to one enemy. This skill is just phenomenal. 45 damage, 25 stamina, but what makes it phenomenal is no cooldown. This is a spammable skill that applies total blind. And so this skill targets a single enemy, and it's going to make it so that single enemy monster can't hit you. Now, once again, think about it. This monster is a metal monster, and he's a mechanical monster. One common defense monster you might run into is Timerion. Timerion can do cooldowns activated, in which he can shut down a lot of your strategy, because then your cooldowns are activated, and you have to wait for the cooldowns to reset, or you're going to have to use 0 cooldown skills, which typically tend to not be that strong. Now, if you're running Scrap Warrior and you make him go second, so let Timerion go first, let's say he has 3 level 10 speed runes, he outspeeds you, he does cooldowns activated, hey, guess what, it really doesn't matter. Because then your Scrap Warrior can go, and then you can do total blind on the enemy attacker, and then when the enemy attacker attacks you, so what, he can't do anything to you. And essentially you can do this over and over and over again. And then the one thing I'm curious about is what happens if Timerion does loop damage. If he does loop damage and then you do total blind against the enemy attacker, is he going to be able to attack you back with total blind? Because I'm not sure if the effect lands. So for example, like, let's say it's an enemy Vatamagma, right? And you do total blind on him, but he has loop damage. When he reflects the attack at you, does the blind already take effect, in which case his total blind will miss your total blind because your total blind landed? I'm not sure how to work in that case. I guess we're going to have to do some trial and error. But yeah, just, I love this. I love that it counters Timerion. I love that it counters anyone with cooldowns activated. I love that you're essentially giving your team evasion from whatever monster has total blind. And so I would have to say this is a definite must-have skill on a supportive secondary denier build, full denier build. On an attacker, it's really subjective. It's up to you, because he has some really strong skills that you can put on an attacker build, in which case you may not even need Smokescreen, because the thing about this monster is if he has the means to destroy a monster, you don't need Total Blind. Total Blind is there just in case you can't finish off an enemy monster. So it's really up to you if you're going the attacker route. And I already released a level 1 to 100 video on an attacker route Scrap Warrior, so you can see that video for yourself, you can see some of the battles and decide for yourself. And speaking of an attacker Scrap Warrior, skill group 3 has Homebrewed Nuclear Device. Deals massive special damage to an enemy, requires cooldown. Massive means 70 damage, only a 22 stamina cost, that's pretty low, and a 2 turn cooldown. 70 special base damage, and once again, Moonshine Bottle. This essentially gives you triple damage against a mechanical monster. So can you imagine yourself in a mechanical war? Let's say it's a triple mechanical war, or just at least one mechanical war. Let's say mechanical and metal. Chances are 2 of those monsters you're going to be facing are in the mechanical book, in which case you give yourself that mechanical hater, and then Homebrewed Nuclear Device is the equivalent to 210 damage. So against monsters like Flamarion that have the artifact trait, Tankarion, you can do some serious damage, especially if you go the attacker route. Heck, even if you give this monster 3 team speed, 210 damage skill, that is insane. So he has the potential to be a killer even without strength runes, but definitely as an attacker, oh man, I would really love to see the potential with this monster. You can give him a 50% damage buff, a double damage buff, a triple damage buff, and then mechanical hater on top of all of that. He has the capability to seriously deal some major damage to the enemy team. And so for that reason, once again, if you're running him as an attacker, I'd say this is a definite must-have. If you're running him as a secondary denier or a secondary supportive monster, it's still worth considering running this skill just because you still have the possibility to deal some damage even without strength runes. Next up we have Saber Throwing, deals moderate metal damage to all enemies, applies bleeding to all enemies, requires cooldown. Here we have a 40 damage metal based attack that applies bleeding, and this is a really great skill. I would definitely recommend this skill for an attacker build. 40 damage combined with the fact that you can do mechanical hater, once again that's really powerful. At the same time however, keep in mind that a lot of the monsters that are mechanical in the mechanical book, they tend to be metal based, and so you're still doing a metal based attack against a metal monster. So sure, you'll have that triple damage buff, but at the same time it'll be 50% weaker because it's metal on metal. So against mechanical monsters it's not that effective, just keep that in mind, but still it is still going to be more powerful than usual and it's still going to apply bleeding, so that is a great positive. And furthermore, you actually have a second AoE skill which works really great when you have attackers. Just do 2 AoEs back to back and that typically finishes off the enemy team. And speaking of which, your secondary AoE is Massive Smokescreen. Deals moderate special damage to all enemies, applies total blind to all enemies, requires cooldown 35 damage, 22 stamina, 3 turn cooldown, and it applies total blind. So we have an AoE total blind. Now the only drawback with AoEs is a 90% accuracy, but hey, that's not really like a negative because that's just about every single AoE, with the exception there's some AoEs that are 95% accuracy. And so this is the reason why you can use Scrap Warrior as a deny monster. Like I mentioned, total blind is essentially better than freeze or stun, not better than possession, although you can argue that because there are monsters that are immune to possession, and currently no one in the game is immune to total blind has somewhat of an advantage. So yeah, total blind is incredible. You can run Scrap Warrior as a deny monster, which means 3 speedruns, if you're on a lower level league where you're not going up against really that many ranked up monsters. If Scrap Warrior is like your only level 115, then heck, by all means give him 3 speedruns because he's going to be your fastest monster and you want to deny the enemy team. However, for a majority of the players, a lot of the players that have been playing Monster Legends for a long time, most likely you already have faster monsters than Scrap Warrior with 3 of your best speedruns, in which case this is why Scrap Warrior turns into a secondary denier. You give him 3 team speedruns and you have him go last. You have him do Massive Smokescreen at the very end to immobilize whoever you need to immobilize. Or if you're running Saber Throwing, you end the game off with Saber Throwing to just 40 damage metal based AoE bleed. Like, there's so much you can do with this monster. So yeah, I'm really going to try my best to give you guys different rune setups, but the problem is there's just so many different ones. So for example, 3 team speed, that's what I've been saying, and with 3 team speed you honestly just need to be sure you run Massive Smokescreen. That's like your main thing. Go last and Massive Smokescreen the enemy. Also, I would recommend you run Smokescreen just in case you need a single target, just in case there's one monster that's a main threat. 95% accuracy is better than 90% accuracy. It's a given, you know. Sure, you don't hit everyone, but that 5% chance to hit the monster you need, that's more important to me. And then alternatively, you can do 1 speedrun and 2 team speedrun, and this would give you the advantage against those battles where you do face a Timerion, where say Timerion is faster than you. Most likely, even if you have a other deny monster and Timerion goes first, if he just cooldown's activated, maybe your deny monster is going to have to recharge to skip their turn, and then most likely we'll go over to Scrap Warrior because the enemy attacker might be running 2 strength runes and a speed, or maybe a strength, a speed, and team speed, in which case hopefully with your 2 team speed and single speed you may be able to go before them, and then you can utilize that strategy of doing Smokescreen on the enemy attacker. That way you don't take any damage from him. And then another possibility is to run a speed, a team speed, and a strength, and that's actually what I'm currently doing on my main account, and I'm actually running Moonshine Bottle, Smokescreen, Homebrewed Nuclear Device, and Massive Smokescreen. And the main idea with that build is just to have my Scrap Warrior react to however he needs to react. The strength rune just makes my Scrap Warrior stronger, which means Homebrewed Nuclear Device is going to be really strong, and if I'm facing off against mechanical monsters, I could always just do Moonshine Bottle and then Homebrewed if I need to, or if not, I just single smoke screen or AoE massive smoke screen. So it allows for a lot of flexibility. But again, there is no like definite you must run this rune setup. There's always a pro and a con to every rune setup. For example, by giving this monster 1 strength rune, 1 speed, and 1 team speed, well, that makes it so the enemy monsters are possibly going to be faster, especially if their attacker is doing 1 strength and 2 team speed, because I gave up a team speed rune to give them an individual speed and a strength. So there's pros and cons to everything, so you're just going to have to really play around with it. And then the last option you can do for Scrap Warrior is to give him 2 strength and a speed or a team speed, in which case he becomes your attacker, in which case I would recommend Saber Throwing, Massive Smoke Screen, Moonshine Bottle, and Homebrewed Nuclear Device. As for Smoke Screen on the attacker build, I don't really think it's necessary. I think most of the time you can just do Homebrewed Nuclear Device to kill whoever is the main threat, you can do Saber Throwing to injure everyone, potentially kill everyone, or Massive Smoke Screen to deal a lot of damage and also make it so they can't hit you. And yeah, those are possibly the majority of your choices. And then again, don't completely count out Moonshine Shot, especially if you're giving this monster 1 speed and 2 team speed or just 3 team speed, because you will be able to apply Mechanical Hater on a teammate, specifically your attacker, and just have him take out the enemy mechanical monsters if there are any. That's the main thing about Scrap Warrior and Mechanical Hater. It really is very niche. It's only for those situations where you go up against mechanical monsters, which typically will be in Meta Wars or in Mechanical Wars, obviously. But overall, I do gotta say, I was really impressed with this monster. I am so glad I waited to do an analysis on him, because now we know that Mechanical Hater is actually triple damage, and now we know that Total Blind really is like Total Blind, like similar to Evasion. It is incredible, and I love, normally I hate how versatile monsters are. Normally I'm like, okay, have a fast speed, be a denier, have a strong power, be an attacker. I normally hate when there's so many different things you can do with a monster, but with Scrap Warrior it's fine, because if you were to run like Massive Smoke Screen, Moonshine Bottle, and then either Saber Throwing or Homebrewed Nuclear Device, you could honestly shift this monster however you wanted to. If you wanted to make him an attacker, you just swap runes. If you wanted to make him a deny monster, you just swap runes. There really isn't much of a need to swap skills like with other monsters. So yeah, that's gonna be it for the analysis on Scrap Warrior. I gotta say, I really ended up liking this monster, and I want to hear from all of you guys. If you got Scrap Warrior, what do you think about him? Do you like him? Do you dislike him? Have you had a chance to use him? If not, I would highly recommend you get out there and use him right now, because he is a lot of fun to use, especially like I said, when you face a Tamiron, he goes before you, does cooldowns activated, and then you just kind of troll him by doing Total Blind on the attacker over and over and over again. It is great. And so anyhow, please be sure to leave me your thoughts in the comments below, and best of luck to all of you in your Monster Legends adventures, and like always, remember to dream big and pursue your passions.